So when it comes to these videos that Tucker Carlson shared with the world last night, there is a tremendous amount of anger, and the story is completely convoluted about these videos. It's rather twisted. It's a little sick. It's what happens certainly in the conversation of tribalism, and it happens every which way, and it happens when you think something means something when it actually means something else. You can argue, and I don't mind it, if you want to say that someone's trying to create a different narrative about January 6th. You can argue the facts. The question is, why would anybody be opposed to the idea of more information being shared? That's completely nuts. Guys, welcome to the show presented by Americans for Prosperity, americansforprosperity.org, economic liberty, free speech. I'm still not in my perfect studio confines yet. We're closer every single day. We had some flood damage. We've changed some things around. We will get there quickly. Let's start with the one of the videos that Tucker Carlson shared. These videos come from the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. And they come from the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, because he decided to share 40,000 plus hours of footage with Tucker. Now, I said at the time I didn't mind it, and I wish he would have shared it with a couple of other people. I would have liked to have seen that happen, but he gave them to Tucker Carlson. That's the way it goes. If he gave them to me, I would have reviewed 40,000 hours worth of footage. I probably would have taken a couple of days off work, and then I would have shared them with you. Of course I would have. Every single thing I could possibly think to share. There's a weird question as to, if you had all this footage, why wouldn't you share it? Why wouldn't you give people the totality of the story of what it is that took place? It is beyond understanding that you wouldn't. I didn't say that what comes after, some level of narrative, you can agree or disagree with, think somebody is wrong, think somebody's trying to manipulate. That's not the story. I get that some people feel that that's happening. I get that for some people it is happening, and that's an argument. I'm discussing the sharing of the content. Let's go to this one right here.
These are the pictures you've seen of January 6th. They're familiar because they've been playing on a loop on every media outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that. But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th, they controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty in Washington.
Our office wants...
Now, we should be clear about a couple things, or at least I want you to be clear about my view. January 6th was not an insurrection. I will have that debate with anyone, anywhere, anytime. Was it a riot? Absolutely, it was a riot. I won't say no. Was there violence on January 6th? Absolutely, positively, there was violence on January 6th. I think that to say otherwise is to be, well, out of one's head. Now, if that is something we want to argue, well, I believe I've got the data on my side. I believe I've got the facts on my side. I believe I can prove my point. And if you want to prove your point, well, then go right ahead. That's what debate is all about. Now, sometimes we're having a debate about what are indeed facts. To say that January 6th was not violent is not true. To say that everyone on January 6th is violent or was violent is equally not true. That's false. Absolutely, positively false. The narrative that the January 6th committee tried to put together, along with those politicos who would not allow any other conversation to take place, that everybody who was at the Capitol, in the Capitol on January 6th was violent, is of course not true. It was wrong from the beginning. It's still wrong today, and it will be wrong tomorrow. It's not a bad thing to say that. It's an honest thing to say that. I think it's dishonest to say nothing violent occurred on January 6th. Of course, something violent occurred on January 6th. Of course it did. And the video evidence proves that. But there's more to look at, like, for example, this.
The single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon shaman.
The so-called QAnon shaman.
QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down.
Now, there are people who will tell you that Tucker Carlson made a mistake there, that they do know how Jacob Chansley got into the Capitol building. And he shouldn't say there's a question about it if indeed there's facts that he came through what I believe was a broken window. You should say what it is. That's, I think, rational. But you saw in that video, this guy's walking around. This guy does have what can be described as a police escort. This guy does walk by multiple cops and no one stops him at all. Why can't we see that? What's wrong with looking at that? What's wrong with saying, wait a second, what's that all about? Now, some people have argued that, well, the police were already overrun, so they were engaging in de-escalation and they didn't want to cause too much of a scene. That's a much different conversation than a guy that you have overwhelmed 9 people to 1 that you could have escorted out of the Capitol. You could have escorted him out of the Capitol, and they didn't. Now, this is just some of the video, and there's more of the video that I'm sure Tucker Carlson is going to put out. And I would argue that if this is what the first foray is, I think he's saving the best for last. That's how I would do it. You would drip, 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 and then bam. That's how you would display it. And for the people who say that's disgusting and that's despicable and that's wrong, I could not disagree more. The January 6th committee hired a showrunner from ABC to share their story. They hired a TV guy to go out there and present the story to America. And they made it spectacle and they put it in prime time. You mean I can't share these videos in a certain way to be able to share? Look at all of this that didn't get shared with us. I find that to be laughable. I find the people opposed to that to be wholly ignorant of how things get displayed. If someone hands me 40,000 hours worth of footage, I'm going to put it together in a way that I think best explains things that took place. Now, as I said, I think this should have been shared with more people, whether you want to call them commentators like Tucker Carlson or radio hosts like myself or journalists, because there is a difference between the things. And maybe from that, like they did the Twitter files, maybe we could get a more complete understanding of everything that took place. But nothing can be complete if we don't have all the information, which is what these 40,000 hours are all about. Why is anyone opposed to that? It was Mitch McConnell, the Senate Minority Leader, who put out a statement saying he's standing with the Capitol Police. He's opposed to displaying this information. You can stand with Capitol Police all you want. Cocaine Mitch, you feel free. Knock yourself out. But why in the world would you think it's a problem to release this information? Or is the problem that it got released to Tucker Carlson? And why is the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, making statements like this?
These lies continue tonight. Rupert Murdoch, who has admitted they were lies and said he regretted it, has a special obligation to stop Tucker Carlson from going on tonight now that he's seen how he has perverted and slimed the truth, and from letting him go on again and again and again. Not because their views deserve such opprobrium, but because our democracy depends on it.
Now, he said the same things in the well of the Senate. A U.S. senator told a media organization not to allow one of their people to share information with the American public. If you're not freaked out about that, I don't know what to tell you. If you're bothered by commentary from Tucker Carlson, well, that's a completely different thing. You're more than welcome. You are free to disagree with the man. But you don't think Tucker Carlson should be allowed to share the video, Senator Schumer? Just for curiosity's sake, what kind of republic do you actually favor? Because I can't figure it out for the life of me. I have absolutely no idea what it is that Senator Schumer actually believes in when he makes this statement, that Rupert Murdoch should stop him. Let me ask you, these videos should, if AFP said, no, you can't really talk about that, well, then I wouldn't be sponsored by Americans for Prosperity anymore. But they don't say that to me because I have very honest, open conversations. If my radio station said, you can't talk about that, well, then that would be my last day as a radio host for that station. But most importantly, if a senator was pushing that someone shouldn't be allowed to say something, shouldn't the anger and the disgust and the ridicule and the shame and the censure go towards that senator? Disagreeing with what is said is different than suggesting, as the Senate Majority Leader, to the owner of a media company, don't allow that to be said. Stop them from saying it. I don't think I'm so far off base. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to think, based on my Twitter feed, I'm the only rational person left in America. The idea that we shouldn't share these videos, that America should not have seen these videos, is such nonsense that it makes me sick. And that there are people who would actually agree with that, that's surreal. Now, disagreeing with Tucker Carlson's commentary, hell, I disagree with Tucker Carlson's commentary. I mean, that's just standard operating procedure, boo. I mean, that's the way what? You don't ever disagree with Tucker Carlson? You don't ever disagree with me? You don't ever disagree with Mark Levin? You don't ever disagree with Megyn Kelly? You don't ever disagree with Dave Rubin? You don't ever disagree with anybody? Really? Because that's next you're going to tell me you don't ever disagree with your wife or your husband or your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whatever the case may be. People disagree. Sometimes I hear something, I'm like, nope, that's not it. It's like, for example, when people tell me January 6th wasn't a riot. Yes, it was. It's a riot. I don't know why that's so hard for people to say. It was a riot. Quote me, it's fine. Insurrection, no. Riot, yes. I'll debate that anywhere, anytime. You want to debate the narratives that come around this, the tribalism of this. That's fine. One of the things I will debate is not everybody who was at the Capitol on January 6th was some kind of violent fool. That's wrong to say. If people were being escorted by the police, as we just saw the video, if people were waved into the Capitol by Capitol Police, they aren't necessarily dangerous folk, and they have an argument to make, which is, what did I do so wrong? They waved me in. What did I do so wrong? They waved me in. Now, people who were hurting Capitol Police officers, people who were engaged in violence, people who destroyed property, they engaged in violence or they destroyed property, and you have every right to press charges against them. No argument. Those are, well, really a conversation of facts, and yes, indeed, a conversation about debate. But there should be no debate about whether or not this video footage should be released. It's clear that the January 6th committee selectively decided what it is we could see. And they did so in a very Hollywood fashion to create their narrative of the events, as opposed to sharing with America the totality of the events, which would lead us to questions like, what was the security on January 6th? Where did we make mistakes? What could we have done better? Could lead to conversations about why President Trump didn't do X, Y, or Z. Legitimate questions, worthy questions. I don't mind you asking them. And I don't mind you being angry with Donald Trump about January 6th in terms of what happened after the Capitol had been, the riot had started. Because I'm one of those people. The vice president was in there. I don't care how angry you were with Mike Pence. You get him safely out of there. That's what you do when you're president. And any other conversation I find to be pablum. Maybe I'm on an island on that one. Maybe you wholeheartedly agree with me. But that's what the debate is about. The videos themselves were utilized for a particular political purpose by the January 6th committee, which includes Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, who should be damn well ashamed of themselves, never mind the rest of the Democrats on that committee. I'm glad that they're out. I want to see as much as I possibly can. That's what we should be in agreement about. Now, how people are sharing the conversation, whether it be Tucker Carlson or anybody else, that's debate. That's the debate. And I'm fine with debate. Kenneth there saying the January 6th committee is Cinderella when she didn't make it home before midnight. Turned into a pumpkin? Is that basically what we're going with here? Roger, Schumer, and Pelosi and the Democrats all telling lies. Well, let's just stop for a moment. They shared video that showed a riot. It's not a lie. Claiming that everybody there was a violent rioter, that's clearly not true. And that's where the difference is. That it's wrong to say everything about January 6th is a lie. What is, I think, proper to say is this January 6th committee sure as hell did not show America the totality of what happened. And they created a narrative, crafted a narrative to move a political narrative, an ideology, an attack on Trump and others, as opposed to coming clean with this is what happened. These are some of the people who engaged. These are the people who engaged in the riot. These are the people who were just in the Capitol. We don't think they should have been there. You can say that, but they didn't commit any acts of violence. What created this moment? What was the security issue? How do we fix this in the future? And are we going to charge these people? And if so, with what? And then you can go into your blame games everywhere you want. They didn't do that. They did not do that. Don't ask me to have any respect for them. I'm not about to do it. Did the guy who shot Babbitt really fear for his life? So I have heard a couple of interesting theories of how they think it came to be that this officer shot and killed Ashley Babbitt. I'm not going to get into that right now. But I am as curious as you, Rose. Are we going to see a video of another view of Ashley Babbitt and ask, is there something else that could have been done? I don't know. But I'll take a look. And this, Rose, this is a solid point. Here I am making the argument that not everybody in the Capitol on January 6th was engaged in violence, because that's true. And I will be told by people of multiplicities of the mainstream media that that's ridiculous, and how dare I? These are the same people who told us about Portland or about Seattle or about you name the place with buildings on fire behind them, that it was a mostly peaceful protest. Now all of a sudden we aren't allowed to have that level of parsing. I think we should tell complete stories. That's what I think we should do. And I don't think that everybody in the Capitol was engaged in violence, because I think the video proves that. But did people engage in violence at the Capitol? Absolutely. And should they be excoriated? Absolutely. They weren't speaking for me. They weren't working for me. They weren't helping me. As a matter of fact, they made my life more difficult. if we're going to be honest. I won't condone what happened on January 6th. And I sure as hell won't condone people who don't tell a total story, because we still aren't discussing security. And that blows my mind, among many things. It would blow my mind equally if someone said, well, this wasn't even a riot and Democrats made it all up. They didn't make it all up. They didn't make it all up. They're wrong in calling it an insurrection, but they didn't make it all up. But everybody is tribal and everybody wants a narrative. Me, I'd like some damn facts, please. I'd like more video and more information. And I am really sickened by anybody in a nation, never mind a nation as a whole, that wants less information. That's a freaking mind scramble right there. Guys, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being part of the show. My thanks to Americans for Prosperity for being with us. AmericansForProsperity.org. Really and truly appreciate you and what you do, and that you let me do this right here. And I will catch you guys tomorrow. Maybe with some better lighting for this, if the studio is going to be like this. I got work.